Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Entitled People. And as usual, it's time to check out some more Reddit posts, so let's get into it, friends. Entitled Dad expects car crash victim to give up priority seating on flight. This happened last year, but I still can't believe it. My partner and I were taking a cross-country flight on a budget airline during the holidays. The day before the scheduled flight, we were involved in a car accident, where our car was T-boned in an intersection. My partner was physically fine, obviously a little rattled mentally, but I sustained a fractured collarbone and a torn tendon in my ankle. We were both far from home visiting family, but staying long enough to heal wasn't an option, and I decided I just wanted to make it home. We called the airline ahead of time to request a wheelchair and early boarding due to my injuries. My ankle was the size of a softball and in a bandage. I could not put weight on it. Also had my arm in a sling due to the collarbone break. Crutches were not an option because of this. As you can imagine, flying across the country like this was already a nightmare. The airline and airports were great. This was a super budget airline, so seats are automatically assigned at the gate, unless you pay ahead of time to choose. Because of the situation, we had specific seats assigned towards the front of the plane, and on the aisle. I had aisle, my partner had middle. We board pretty much before everyone else and go to our assigned seats. I was in a wheelchair the whole day until we crossed the threshold to the plane. Everyone waiting at the gate or lined up to board after us could see this. The next group to board directly after us were families with young children. As the families file into the plane, a woman and two very young children sit down in the row across from us. A man says he has the window seat in our row, so I slowly hobble up and out of the way with much help from my partner, and he takes his seat. Everyone else on the flight boards. This was a full plane. The woman across from us is struggling with the young kids, and the guy in the window seat is clearly the father trying to talk to her. This is where the problem starts. We are waiting at the gate for the runway to clear, when this man turns to my partner, points to the woman and kids across the aisle and says, "That's my family. Change seats so I can sit with them." Please keep in mind I am in the aisle seat, the one he wants, with my arm in a sling, my ankle fully wrapped up and clearly swollen, leg extended into the aisle. Again, budget airline. These rows have no leg room, so I needed the aisle for my leg due to swelling, etc., and for mobility in case I needed to go to the restroom. I am looking and feeling like I was hit by a truck, because I literally was, 16 hours ago. My partner looks at him, utterly confused as to how this man doesn't understand the situation, and says, "No dude, she needs that seat." Dad man looks immediately frustrated, points again at his family and says, "No, look, that is my family. Change seats with me so we can sit together." My partner just says no again, and motions towards my obviously broken body, and tells Dad man we are assigned these seats and are not going to change. Dude looks like he wants to argue, but my partner is a bigger guy, and while he's the nicest person ever, he can be intimidating if he wants to be. I've never seen him be aggressive toward anyone, but when he looked back at me I could tell by the look in his eyes that he was this close to decking this guy. Dadman dials back a tad, and sighs the most obnoxious, exasperated sigh I have ever heard an adult make, and rolls his eyes. He immediately flags over a flight attendant to make his case, but she reiterated that these were our seats. He tried to get her to move his whole family together elsewhere, but it was a full flight. She checked that I was okay with my seat and left. I still can't get over the entitlement of this man, who could have paid like $20 to choose his family's seats ahead of time, expecting a clearly injured person to move to accommodate him, and being pissed when we said no. Ex wouldn't pay me back, so I made her pay via the Bell bill. This was a few years ago now, but I find it fun to think about. Started dating at 15, moved in together at 18, and within 6 months of living together, she cheated on me. She owed me something like $800 for 1 month's rent and for a vet bill I paid for. We still lived together for 6 months after we broke up, because despite me being able to move back home, she expected me to move out and also continue paying my portion of the rent. It sucked, but it sucked less than paying for her to have her own place. The TV/internet bill was in her name. We had cable. The fact that she owed me money was documented via email. I very strategically sent many emails asking her to confirm that she was aware she owed me money, and how much. I also asked if we could just deduct my portion of the cable bill from the debt she owed me. On the second last month of our lease, she was hounding me for my portion of the internet and cable bill, about $30. Wouldn't take no for an answer and threatened to not pay and have it turned off. Had another roommate in school who needed it, so I paid my part. By this time, she was staying with the man she cheated on me with, so wasn't really around ever. For some reason, when she moved all her stuff out, she left the cable box and Wi-Fi router. I guess assuming because I was still paying for and using it. I brought my own TV to use after her and her new boyfriend came in one day and took hers without saying anything. I knew I was never getting my money back, so I had an idea. Buy every channel that exists. All extras I could buy just with a 4-digit PIN. Before this, I emailed her one last time saying something like, "Just to confirm, my portion of this month's bill will be subtracted from X amount you owe to me, correct?" And she agreed. These purchases began a week or two before I moved back in with my parents. I bought every channel individually, bought and rented movies, even started paying for pay-per-view porn because I thought it was hilarious. Kept track of everything I purchased and racked the bill up to almost exactly how much money she owed me, leaving a bit of space in case I miscalculated, about $750. When she got the bill, I was back with my parents. She came to my parents' house, bill in hand. My father answered the door. Meekly stated something like, "OP spent so much money on this bill, I can't afford it." To which my father responded, "Use the money you owe to pay for it," and closed the door on her. I was listening and out of sight. Whether or not she ended up having to pay, I'll never know, but it felt good to do at the time. Getting the cops to forcibly remove an old family friend from my property, resulting in a charge. I'm a 46-year-old male. The woman in question is an old family friend who I'll call Old Friend. She is also 46. My mother passed away last year from a long battle with cancer. She was in her early 70s and I was an only child, so I inherited everything. Now, my mother's passing was awful, but I inherited her house, which was a positive. My wife and I had never been able to buy a house after years of struggles and renting, so to finally own our own property was great. We only had to pay out for utilities, and it meant that we had a lot more disposable income, and we could finally give our 2 kids, 12 male and 15 female, what they deserved. We moved into the house about 6 months ago, and it started off fine, until Old Friend came into the picture. Old Friend's mom was my mom's best friend. She died years ago, so my mom became like a surrogate mom to her. Unbeknownst to me, my mom said to Old Friend on her deathbed that I'd take care of her, and the house was vaguely mentioned. I think my mom in her ill state mentioned giving me the house, and Old Friend wildly misconstrued. So imagine my surprise when about a month ago, Old Friend turns up in her car with her 3 kids, and what looks like some of her belongings. She stepped out and knocked on the door to speak to me. I say, "Old Friend, I wasn't expecting to see you." And Old Friend says, "Sorry, OP, I wanted to allow you the time to grieve. However, I'm here because of what your mom promised me." Promised you? She said you'd look after me and the house. So obviously, she wants me and the kids to live here because she wanted us to have the house. What? Isn't this great? The kids and I can finally own our own home. Old Friend, this is my house. I don't know what Mom told you, but she was very ill, very delirious, and in her will I got everything. That's not right. She promised me I'd be looked after. Well, I'm sorry, but you have no claim to this house, or anything she left behind. I'm sorry you've been led to believe that, but this house is owned by my wife and I. I would appreciate it if you would leave. Old Friend started kicking up a fuss, demanding to leave, and even got her and the kids out of the car and sat on my lawn. They were there for 3 hours, and I basically called the cops. The kids were picked up by a relative, but Old Friend refused arrest and was dragged away in a car. She was bailed, but is facing a minor charge of trespassing and a fine. She has been rallying around everyone in my family to convince them that I robbed her of her inheritance, and I'm an a-hole for denying what's hers. It's so bad that I even had to provide proof to the police that my wife and I own the house, and even a copy of my mom's will. They even spoke to my mom's lawyers, who all confirm Old Friend doesn't have a legal foot to stand on. She has continued to harass my family and is now facing charges of harassment. Edit. It was already in discussions with my lawyer and the police, but I think I'm going to press ahead anyway with the restraining order to protect my assets and my family. I'm also going to press ahead with these charges. I am also thinking of getting the right permission to do so and installing CCTV on my property. We're picking all the grapes. My parents rent a house on a 1/4 acre of land. The land with rows of grapes is not being rented to my parents, but the landlord lets us pick them and juice them every year. The only access to the grapes is through the land my parents rent. Before my parents moved in, this old lady, Maureen, used to pick the grapes with her family and juice them. As a side note, Maureen has her own grapes, but she likes to use our landlord's grapes too because previous tenants did not. Every effing year it's a battle to make Maureen wait to pick grapes so we can pick a share. The landlord has been clear that we get first dibs on the grapes because we're his actual tenants. We always leave her at least a row, 1 of 4. Every year she tries to be sneaky and get the grapes, but this year was the worst. My mom told Maureen that she was going to pick the grapes this weekend. Well, this weekend came and went without being able to pick grapes. My mom's helper crew got sick, my dad was recovering from major surgery, and she couldn't find the time or energy. Maureen calls to inform my mom that she is coming tomorrow to pick all the grapes we didn't. My mom asked her to please wait a few more days as her husband, my dad, has cancer, and her helpers were sick. Maureen's response? That's too bad. You had your chance. My family is coming tomorrow and we are picking the grapes. So my mom came in and told me the story. I said absolutely f***ing not. We are staying up as late as needed to pick every single grape off the vines. Every single one. We both called as many friends as we could. The troops are being gathered. We now have about 10 people to help us pick the grapes. We will pick every single grape so that when stupid Maureen and her stupid family show up, there will not be one little fruit left on the vine. All-nighter for the grapes. Maureen called my mom last night an hour or so into picking, to apologize and said we could have all the grapes. My mom, being a much better person than I am, told her she can still have a row or 2, because we didn't need all the grapes. But Maureen kept saying no and that she won't come by at all. Ironically, it almost sounded like she was throwing a fit about it. What a wonderful neighbor. They're given the kindness to pick an entire row of grapes, but when they're told, sorry, can you wait a bit? I have a family member that's too sick with cancer to help us pick. Her only response is, oh, that sucks. Guess the grapes are all mine now. OP and their family should have convinced her to still come and pick the grapes, but make sure to pick everything beforehand except for just one small bunch, just so she knows what she missed out on. And that is it for today's episode. Thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So take care, I'll see you next time.